Okay. We should be switching over now to Lightroom. I'm gonna check one thing here. First couple of times doing this, it's always I'm a little rusty with it. I think we're good. I like to think so. Cool. Okay, we're live. Typically I could jump to the widescreen to start and kind of talk more about what the purpose of this is, but based on the title, I'm sure everyone kind of knows what the purpose of this stream is. There were Northern Lights on Sunday, and there was a chance for them Monday, but that didn't really work out. But there was a pretty epic show Sunday night, and I was fortunate enough to have some pretty epic views, pretty much in my backyard. So I thought, kind of with the ongoing trend of Northern Lights being of conversation, that I would do some editing of my shots. I've already finished one of them, which is this shot right here. I finished this one a couple days ago. It's one of my better shots, actually, in my opinion, of the year. So I'm happy with that one. I also have this one that I actually want to redo, I think. I like the foreground. I just don't like how dark I left the tree. So I think we're going to re-edit this one. I also have the auroras from May 11th, which for those who hung out for the first stream may remember that we were working on this one. The other thing too is I will be popping over occasionally to my second stream here to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on chat. So that is something that I will be keeping an eye on. Otherwise, I think let's just jump into it. So I think I'm going to come back to this one. This was one that we had just basically done some noise reduction to and worked on getting the foreground color graded better than what it was originally, which was this. It was a little too green for my liking, so brought back a little bit more of the regular colored field, as well as keeping the tree green. So this will be a topic for discussion a little later. I think, though, there's a lot that I have to go through. So to kind of give an idea how my night went, the first substorm, that was right around 10, I was driving forward. I didn't realize that it was happening until I just looked in my rear view mirror and this was happening. So there was really no good foreground that I had out of this. This was the best composed shot that I could have at the first one. So not too happy with how this turned out. In fact, I was pretty frustrated at this point in the night. But as things went on, I went to this spot, which I think I did a separate exposure. It's a little brighter. Is that the first? Maybe not. I can just pull the exposure on this. This is a spot that I've been to a bunch of times. That's not far from home, actually. It's this mill, and it has this little dam next to it. So I've always wanted to get this shot. This faces northeast, right? Yeah, northeast. So I kind of knew that the band was going to kind of arc around it in a sense. So had some luck. I left a little early. I got a little bit impatient. I kept looking at the magnometers, hoping that we would see something that would promote more, and it had some moments. You can see it got closer, it got higher up, but it never really got to that vibrant point. Once I got home, I pulled into my driveway, that was when it had the second substorm arriving. So I pulled back out and went back down the road, and that's when I started firing up shots like this with foregrounds. And then you can see this is when it really pushed south for those that were up at about 1 a.m. It went from this to this in a matter of 45 seconds. So that just goes to show how fast the timing of this can go. Just gonna pull that back real quick. So So anyway, yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at here. The tree one was the first focus though. So this was my first edit of it, and this is, let's see here. This was the raw. So a comparison of the two. I can just pull up my reference here, and you can see I went from this to this. I shoot on this on Sony, and Sony typically pushes like green and red a little bit too much. In this instance, it felt like it was just overall a little warm for my liking, so I cooled things down, and it brought back a little bit of the blues there in the middle, and then more of the purples and the reds up top. So a lot of work to do. I think I'm going to remove this from Lightroom, and this is just a noise reduced image. I may keep that one. See, I made the mistake. So typically one thing that I'll do is I will do two exposures. I'll do one for the trees, or like one for the sky here, and then I will do one for my foreground. And this was the foreground shot, and I loved the silhouette in this moment. Like my eyes were adjusted for when it was dark. And so I didn't realize that my foreground was going to stay this dark. So I have some ability to recover it just because of the dynamic range of the A7R5, but there's a lot of data loss in the tree. So I might end up going with a different composition overall, or at least than how I edited this. But anyway, I want to go through one by one and just kind of peek and see. I'm going to look for better pillars here. So like pillar, 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 pillar. I like this one, and I like that one. This one kind of gets a little bit more hidden. So I'm looking at the thumbnail of this right now, and I see like 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, and 4 lines. So there's kind of like 4 perfectly kind of centered down the line. Sam, what's up, dude? We're kind of at the same issue here. You can see behind the scenes for a second where for some reason it doesn't like to show chat for whatever reason. I had this issue earlier, so may have to just make do with what I can, but whatever. Yeah, I like this one. I think I'm going to go with this just because we have the 4 pillars. I'm going to switch to standard. I like kind of having a bit more of a flat profile. And then I have a basic preset. So these are all Aurora stuff that I've done for May 11th. But I have a user preset that I use that just applies lens corrections and removing chromatic aberration. So that should help. The shot is at least sharp, which I'm happy about. It's really easy to kind of misfocus on these. So we'll start there. I think let's kind of just go here and brighten a couple of things up and kind of just rock and roll. There's your dynamic range showing its glory. Here's my van. Yeah, I may end up doing silhouette on this. I do need to noise reduce it though. What's nice is that because it was so bright, I was able to shoot this at ISO 800 in 5 seconds. What'd I just do? Oh, contrast. Could noise reduce it for the foreground's sake. See how much detail there is in there. Yeah, there is 4 distinct pillars here. I like that a lot. Go to a grid of 5. If I want to switch my overlay of crop, by the way, I can just press O on my keyboard, and this allows me to rotate through. And if there's certain ones that have different viewpoints, I can hold shift and I can switch. And so like this, I can switch my golden ratio, switch for different crops. So if I'm planning to print or something like that, I can see different crop previews. The whole works. But this is the one that I've been using a lot more of recently. I'm lining this line up with this. That looks good. Cool. Okay. Gonna remove true black. I'm gonna remove true white, and I'm gonna make just like that, I think. Hello, Austin. Sam says looking pretty. Thank you, man. Oh, there's chat. All right, I fixed chat, I guess. Cool. Let's go ahead. A new method that I'm discovering is if I use my RGB channels, I can actually gain a lot more control over the general atmosphere of color in the image. So I'm going to pull that back a little bit. Bring up my blues. So when I bring this line up, it's pulling blue, and because my highlights are hugged in this area of my tone curve, this is where I can pull a little bit more blue, or I can pull more yellow into the image. In this instance, I'm going to pull a little bit of blue here, but I'm going to correct it, I think, with a tiny little bit of purple. Might help. So this is without tone curve, and this is after. Before, after. Just little things like that. Cool. Cool. You hold Alt or Option when using saturation. You can see the specific color you're editing to. So right here, I'm going to adjust only my greens, but I'm keeping an eye on like the edge right here, because this is where my green ends, and it probably transitions over to like teal or blue. So I want to make sure that I'm not overdoing it or underdoing it with my greens. Looks good. All right, let's take this into Photoshop. I want to correct the tree a little bit. I want to remove my van. There's a couple things, like I can see the power line is hiding in there, so I'm going to remove that as well. We are up to 5 people hanging out. For those hanging out, thank you. Alright, first things first, I'm in Photoshop, as I always do, Command J or Control J on Windows, just to make a duplicate layer. And this instance, I'm going to go ahead and remove my van. So what I can do here is I can use the clone stamp And because I see that there's repetition along here and here, I can just pull my point from there and I can just brush that in. Because it's referencing here and placing it there. And so there. That takes care of that. Next, let's do our power line here. And because of how small this is, I'm just gonna probably do like a healing brush and just hold shift. Work my way through. Oops. There. Sweet. Got a couple more hiding here. The problem is when I did this the first time is I didn't actually do this. You know what, those are small enough. I might be okay with leaving those. The first time I went through and did this, I got home at about, what time was it? Probably 2:30ish was when I finally decided to call it. Which in hindsight, I probably should have stayed out a little later, but whatever. And I just sat down and started editing at that hour, and that was not my greatest decision. I need to be better at understanding that I shouldn't edit that soon after a shoot. Sorry, I just know that a buddy's mine chasing. Shout out Kalen. Let's do this. Let's correct the tree, actually. So what I noticed with the tree is that it bends a little bit right through there, and I think that's lens distortion. So I'm going to do what is called a puppet warp. So first thing here, so what this basically does is, like, if I were to transform like normal, right, and I were to do like a warp like this, and I were to correct my tree, you can see it's pulling all of the middle here, and it's not getting my specific point there. And sure, I could make points like this, but you can see it's pulling the rest of the image, and that's way more than I actually want. I want to be able to make dynamic points that are basically here and here that allows the tree to be the main thing adjusted. So under edit and puppet warp, I can basically these all become little references or points that become affected. So I'm going to outline my image right now, just generally outline, doesn't need to be exact. And the purpose of this is the edge of where I'm referencing. So the way you saw the warping before, the issue with doing warp in that sense was it referenced the entire image. Now that I've outlined my basically edge of the image here, and now what I can do is I can press top of the tree and the bottom of the tree. If you'll notice here, what it's doing is it's using these as my buffers, essentially. So I could go way down here, I could pull the tree way up, but it's using all these little points in here as my references. I don't want that point, actually. I may not have actually, oh dear. There we go, okay. So let's do one up here, one in the middle, one at the bottom. Maybe like right there. Whoops. So what you can see now is this entire tree is straightened or aligned. It's very minimal. But that's helped. We have the other Charlie in here. What's up, dude? These are your birthday roars, actually. We're adjusting. All right, tree is fixed there. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna lead these clouds, by the way. One thing when I was shooting, actually, is I noticed that there were some clouds like way overhead, and I really liked that because it kind of acted as like a frame for the top of the image. So I might actually end up using this as like a vignette of some sort. But I'm gonna copy a layer, and we are going to see if I can grab just the color red. We'll see if Lumenzia does it. It's pretty desaturated at the moment. I actually did a lot better than I thought I was going to. I'm gonna pull a little bit more this way. And so what this is doing right now, this program in Photoshop is called Lumenzia. It's a plugin by Greg Benz. This essentially is allowing me to make a mask of a specific color. And although I could do this in Lightroom, the additional tools that Greg has incorporated into this make editing on Photoshop side of things so efficient. And that's one of the most important things that I value when it comes to editing is efficiency. So I'm basically just making a layer right now of curves for the color red. And so now what I can do is I can brighten up my reds, and I see that there's all this kind of crap hanging out in this band right here that won't stay. What I'm basically trying to do here is bring this from what it was default, which is right here, and just give him a slight little punch. Again, for those who tuned into my first stream, the main thing that I try and scream with this is subtlety. Just small things like that. This little black and white box down here, this is my curve. Or sorry, not curve. This is my masking box. And so white is what's being affected. Black is an area that's not being affected. So I can paint this. I can choose where I want my mask to be applied. And because we have all this garbage that was like half affected, you can kind of see the edge right here. I'm going to make a gradient, and I'm going to pull it as such like this. I'm going to make it really tall. And so you can see what it's done now is it's choosing a new area that it's going to affect or not affect. I'm also going to bring that up just a little bit more. Perfect. Stamp that. Cool. Let's enhance some of these pillars real quick. I won't do all of them. I don't feel that there's a need to do all of these specific pillars. I think like the Temu way of doing it is just cranking your clarity up here, but that just becomes way too crunchy. So I'm going to avoid that. I'm a big fan of dehazing. I think dehaze is one of the most underrated tools, not in the sense that you may, for those who edit in Lightroom as well, use, which is pulling it to the right. I actually pulled mine a little bit to the left here. What ding did I just hear? Oh my goodness, do I actually have that set up? Oh cool, I do have subscription set up. Cool. There's your behind the scenes. So that should appear here in a second. Thank you, Bob, for the subscription. Cool. I didn't know I actually had that set up. Anyway, back to this. I'm going to go ahead And what was I doing in here again? I'm spacing. Oh yeah, pillars. Duh. Cool. So this is like a little trick that I discovered last year. If you make these really tall radial gradients, I'm just trying to get it lined up just right. And I'm going to make it wide to start. It's not going to stay this wide, don't worry. I'm going to find the middle of my pillars. So I'm going to find like a pillar right there. And let's duplicate it. I'm going to find my pillar right like there. I'm going to duplicate it again. I'm going to find my other pillar, which is like right there. Yeah, right about there. A couple more here. Pull you, straighten you out a little bit there. Plop you. It'll all make sense here in a minute what I'm doing, I promise. Cool. So let's say that I'm happy with those 5 pillars essentially. I'm digress. I'm going to make one more. Plop you right there. What I can do now is I can thin these out and I can bump my exposure just a tiny little bit here, and you can see how these pillars are being affected. Now you can go crazy with it and you can make like insane pillars, but that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is, again, just subtlety. So this is where we started. I'm just gonna pull mine up just a tiny little bit like that. But you see, the problem is with some of these, they're so wide. So now I can go back, and because they're already positioned, I can thin them out so they become more localized on those areas. Now, like this, for example, I'm going to leave a little wide because there's a bunch of pillars in quick succession. Same with that one. Pillars. Cool. So this is without it and this is with it. It's a little bit much, I think. So I can actually just take this amount slider and just pull that down. They're a little wide still. Let's thin them out. There. Cool. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to subtract with a linear gradient and pull up like this. Now what this does is, because we're not going to see pillars all the way down at the horizon, so this essentially, I wish I could pull this thumbnail. Actually, maybe I can. Let's try this. I have no idea where that just went. Oh, is it behind this? It is. This is my gradient. Here's your pillars, and this gradient just fades it out essentially. So this helps my horizon stay nice and clean. Where's my pillars? Now, if you notice, there's a gap here between black and shadows, and I want to fix that. The reason it's happening is because of how dark my foreground is versus my sky. If I were to fix this, this will even that out. The problem is I have with this, though, is I have just such little data in the tree. This was the issue I had when I first edited this shot. So I can pull it up, and yeah, I have a lot of good foreground data, but if I go into the tree here, there's still very little to show for it. So I don't know. Let's try it. Let's try this. We're going to get really creative with our masks here. We're going to go sky. We're going to invert it. Looks like it kind of is hanging out in the middle there. So I'll do the weird thing where you can subtract sky. That looks pretty darn good. What I'm going to do then is subtract a linear gradient from here. And I'm going to subtract another linear gradient from here. Here's my tree. Yeah, there's just a ton of noise in there. And that's just, I just, in that moment, I didn't think to edit that through. So this is just one where I was 90% of the way there compositionally. It's not bad though. Let's live with that. We can do the old trusty and throw some grain in there. Alright, let's do our sky here. If anyone watched the first one, this is how I like to do my vignettes. I like to do like a sky, and then I'm basically just watching where this arcing pattern is. And I kind of find a good spot of where my feathering is, and then I'll remove the foreground. And now you can see I have this really nice gradual arc. Might move you up a little bit. Yeah. That looks really good. That looks really good, actually. Same thing for the bottom. Just gonna do a really nice, simple vignette down here. And then we'll check for clipping. Now the histogram's starting to look really good. This side looks a little raised too. I may have to warp that down. Let's check on our saturation. At this point too, I will like to kind of double check my white balance and kind of see what it thinks. It's doing that thing where it warms it up a bunch. It just doesn't like the amount of green, which I personally do. Okay, that looks good. That looks really good. This is a little saturated up there, so I'm going to disagree with them on the amount of magenta it thinks it needs. Color grading. Stealing a sip of my Arizona, and then we color grade next. Okay. Global to start. So global was probably my favorite. This is probably my favorite right here. My favorite tool in all of editing. If there is a one single tool, if you said make your atmosphere for an image, whether that's cold, warm, golden hour, dusk, sunrise, midday, global is the tool to use. I will stand by that entirely. Because I want it to be a little cooler, I'm going to pull my globals to the blue, and I'm going to bring down my luminance just a tiny little bit, not a ton. And what this does is it paints the image a certain color without adjusting the temperature of it. I can offset this by going to my midtones And in this instance, I'm keeping an eye right here in this midground. Just getting a feel for it. And you can see here I'm not going much. Although I want to. Like, that looks gnarly. It's just a little bit of blue in there, I think, helps it. I could also make my shadows a certain color, but in this instance I don't need to. I think green is probably the color I want to go with for this. I think that's good. Okay, that's without color grading. That's with color grading. That's without, and that's with. Let's fire that through. So we brought this into Photoshop, and this is what we are at right now. We've really brought out our pillars. We've corrected our tree. I like it. Let's do one of these. Orton Effect might work with this one. So some folks know that Orton Effect is one of my favorite, it used to be, I should say, one of my favorite mood setters with an image. I believe that the human eye doesn't see as sharp as, that sounds really like conspiracy theory. Let me rephrase. I don't believe sometimes how sharp we make images is how sharp the human eye sees them. So what I like to do instead is I like to add a little bit of blur or a softness to the images. And I'm going to do that by applying a blur to just the full layer itself. And I kind of like the sweet spot of between 8 to 12. So I think we'll go like, we'll go 9 on this one. And then what I can do, because like right now the image is toast. I mean, this is like if I were to shoot it out of focus. I can blend this into a lighten, and I can bring down my my opacity to like 15 or so %. It's so minimal. I don't even know if it shows up on stream. Like, let's see. There you go. You can see on the edge of the leaves right here. That's with it, and that's without it, essentially. So we'll do one of those. The other method that I discovered as well is I can make a copy of my layer, reduce clarity and dehaze all a little bit here. So those are all basically at the bottom. And this works of similar stripe. Beautiful. This area here needs to be corrected. I think this is one where I could just do warp. I'm going to hold control and I'm going to make a new point here. Maybe not. Let's see. That. Let's try Puppet again. Good old Puppet warp. see. Much better. Lovely, lovely. Okay. Let's apply one over vignette, and I think we'll throw this into Lightroom, finish it off, and we're good. This is where I just use a, what's it called? Just my trackpad with a lasso, and then Lumenzia has a vignette button that will outline that shape. I like that. Oh, duh, I forgot to sharpen. Do that real quick. Make a copy of that, and this is a little shortcutted for Lumenzia as well. It's just a smart sharpen layer that is just masked to clipping edges. So it just saves time. Just checking some things. That looks good. Never want my radius to go over 2. So we'll go like 1.2 or so. When the radius gets that high up, typically what happens is it creates halos, and I don't want those. Give that a minute. See how my buddy Kalen is doing. He's chasing right now. Oh, he's got a tornado warning. Good for him. Cool. Forgot how long this one thing takes. This is taking its sweet, sweet time. I'm canceling it. Let's just do a regular smart sharpen. I don't need your fab and fancy remove clipping, Lumenzia. Not this time, at least. Perfect. Done. All right. Save you. There. There. Save we go. Into Lightroom. It takes it. I should have actually kept the other one. So I could have compared the two. Whatever. It's fine. Nice and sharp. It's a little noisy, but that's just the name of the game. I always like to kind of just see here where I pull things where the information still exists. Same thing with contrast. It's also a way to kind of gut check myself and see if I'm missing anything. I don't think I have any true white actually here. So what I mean when I say true white is basically where a true white pixel is on the image. And because my histogram shows that there's no data here, I can actually pull my white a bunch until that is recovered. But I don't want it to go too much because it blows out a bunch of area down here. So I'm going to hold Option on my keyboard or Alt if you're on Windows, and I'll pull that until I start seeing some color up here. And that's about where they want me before I lose that. There. So yeah, that's before and that's after. So just a little bit of recovery down there. Double check the auto color. They're probably going to pull these really warm. And again, I beg to disagree. I think that looks good. I'm forever going to wish I took a shot of the tree differently, but that's just the way it goes. So we'll rock with that one. Colorable green for done. Cool. Let's do this one. I haven't finished this. In fact, I just started this one. I'm actually, you know what? It's getting really hot. I'm gonna take this off real quick. I'm gonna go get I'm gonna turn on my AC. Actually, I should have done that before I started. Give me 1 second. I think I will be right back. All right, now we are back. Whoops, gotta switch back to that. While I was gone, it looks like Bob is taking off. He said, "Gotta run. That was interesting. Lots of stuff to never tried. Thanks." Yeah, you bet, Bob. Thank you for subscribing. Hope you learned something if you were still hanging out. Cool. I want to potentially touch this image up real quick. This is what I started with, and this is what I'm at. I'm struggling with this one, at least when I was touching it beforehand. I saved this one for this time, though, so... First things first, let's denoise this. That is really, really, really rough. I have Topaz. I hate Topaz these days. It sucks for Astro stuff. So, if anyone else here actually uses Topaz, good for them. I can't. Not for Astro stuff. That looks... 20 is kind of my number. Let that run for a second. Had some nice... I like the arcing to this one a lot. Come on, come on, come on. Almost there. This one will be interesting. I think that a lot of color grading on this one will be our ticket. Really warm up here, really cool back there. It's almost done though. Oh, it looks like because it's getting a little darker out, my green LEDs are showing up a bit more. I never have it green like this, but in the spirit of the stream, gave it this color. That looks much better. This is gonna, I mean, it's not gonna be perfect. It's an Astro shot, so I can't expect it to be, but looking in the detail here and then going up into the sky, that looks phenomenal. Cool. All right, let's party on. I do like kind of keeping a little bit of this information hidden. And I actually have grown to like this being out of focus down here. I did shoot the exposures to have this stacked, where I can focus stack it, but I think I'm actually going to have it unfocused. There's the out of focus. Pull you. Let's do this. Let's make a vignette for our sky. You can see a little bit of red here, but not enough that I'm going to focus on it. Basically just enlarging this thing. There. Dim right there. What I can do as well, there we go. So I'm cooling down my temperature, and this is one method you can do, is you can cool your temperature down in that area of the sky here, which doesn't actually look that bad. The other method though is you can go down to this color and you can essentially pick and choose. So if I really wanted to push the reds, done, easy reds. Actually in this instance I'm debating it just for the sake that the reds are hiding in there, but I don't want to fraudulently throw too much in here. But this allows me to go for a much more natural dark sky color. There. Cool. I should mention as well, those who are here, the chat, I'm absolutely open to answering any questions, or if anyone has suggestions, I'm always open to hear those too. Gonna do some cleanup on this here. Cleanup on aisle, whatever the hell we're at. We'll come back to that. Let's do one of these again. This was a shot that I have wanted for years. When we moved out here, I'm just out past Cottage Grove right now. And I would just go for drives out in this area of town. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, by the way, for those who are tuned in that don't know exactly the general area. I'm from Wisconsin. There is a lot of just winding rural roads, small little unincorporated towns, and one that I found was this dam essentially, and without a doubt it is one of my favorite areas to just roam. And so when this happened, I was thrilled with it. I just wish that the auroras were a little bit more pronounced, but it is what it is. I guess chat decided to stop working too, I think. Oh, never mind, actually. Chat is still working. Um, Speedy Apples. What is your favorite season to shoot in? It's a mix. I love spring for the sake of storms. Like many other chasers, it's what gets me out the door a lot of the time. But I really love shooting in the fall. I've like actually intentionally traveled less this summer for the sake of having the time and funds to travel more this fall. So September should be pretty busy for me. I've got some stuff up my sleeve that I'm excited to talk about. Not export. Photoshop. There, cool. All right, let's go ahead and this is one where I'll say I just like to get insight from Photoshop and just technology itself. If I go to edit, like I copied a couple layers, and if I go to edit and then I go to show all menu items, or wait, no, image, show all menu items, there is one for auto tone, contrast, and color. So I can do like auto color and I can see what this is. Typically it goes pretty purple, which in this instance, that is absolutely what it did. I have elected instead to, let's try auto tone. Typically goes pretty extreme for these, and it goes quite purple. It also, though, is a good way to kind of pull me back in to make sure that I'm not overdoing it in regards to, what's it called? Dehazing, because that is one of my faults, is I really get heavy in the dehaze side of things. It's a little strong. Speedy. Who would you say is your biggest mentor? Who would you say is your biggest mentor in photography? My biggest mentor, I don't really have one. I watch a lot of folks online. But one person's style that I really kind of gravitated towards early on when I was getting into photography years ago was Nick Page. I like his authentic video style where it's just him out there shooting. Of course, it's chopped up pretty good, but he's very raw with just how he talks about his stuff. He's very good at in the know, like in the now of like what his scene looks like. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And then he'll walk you through a really good post-processing side of things too. So I really like Nick's stuff. He's very humble about what he does. So Nick is one of my guys for sure. I had the privilege of running into him at an Applebee's a couple of years ago out chasing. That was cool. Just kind of cracking some of these rocks right now. Compositionally, this is a fine shot. I wish there was a little bit more on the left here, but I at least like let me draw out my mentality actually with this image so you guys can get an idea of like where my head is at with it. I guess another mentor of mine, his name is Ed. He's done some education of photography here in Madison, and he's actually one that kind of took me under my wing when I was learning to educate. But he has always told me triangles, 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 and that's just true in photography in general. So I always am looking for triangles when I'm framing up stuff. So, there's some form of a triangle here, triangle here, the actual shape. I'm drawing on this image, aren't I? I am. Triangle here, and that's kind of like acts as my leading line up, which is good. We have a larger triangle here, essentially. It's like, imagine like that's an attempt at one, kind of in that sense here. But the leading eye is supposed to kind of pull me up here. Unintentionally, I got another triangle that kind of hangs out right here, and that kind of can pull the eye a little bit this way, and then boom, there's my northern lights. Because there's a lot of psychology that goes into photography, and so the goal of it is to kind of have like a mental point of what's it called, of what I'm going after. So yeah, I don't need that layer. That was for my triangles. Let's do this water. I'm going to go ahead and do the water in a different way. I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer. I'm going to call the one below it free water. And what I'm going to do on this layer is I'm going to make a brush. Whoops, it's way too big. Make a brush smaller with no auto mask, and I'm going to paint in my area here. And I'm going to make this water really, really blue. I'm going to go along the edges here. God, I hope no one tunes in at this very moment. Sorry in advance. I promise this isn't how I edit things. The reason I'm not doing auto mask on this, by the way, is because it wouldn't pick up this tree as well. And I want to be able to just kind of run with it a little bit more. There. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. It's just my water's blue. And I'm going to now go through and change my opacity of this layer to a point in which I feel like the water is a bit more accurate, because this is without it, and that's a little too green for my liking. So I can be a bit more controlled with this and pull it back. And one way that I'm making sure that it looks authentic is I'm looking at the mirror of this. I'm looking at the color of my sky here, because that's generally where it's pulling its color from. So I'm keeping an eye on this here, but then just a little bit. And I'm thinking around 20% is right around where I kind of like it. And this gives me a chance without and with. Without it and with it. Speedy Apples. Is there anyone who thinks of you as their mentor? Yeah, there's some people out there. My brother's getting in photography, and so it's been fun to kind of take him out and give him little pointers here and there about it. Took him hiking a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. So it's cool seeing someone in the family get into this as well. One of the things that I kind of took, I am removing this antenna. It's bothering me. One of my favorite things about photography, though, is the educational side of things, which is kind of why I'm doing this streaming thing. Is I just love being able to talk people through my learning process, or like my thought process with a lot of this stuff, and show the behind the scenes of a lot of what goes into this hobby, or profession if you're someone who takes it a little bit more seriously. But yeah, there is. I'm getting a little hyper focused or a little distracted as I do this, but education is just really fun with this, because it's fun to be able to teach people the that side of things here, of what I'm passionate about. Just removing some things, that's all. It's looking good. Let's do some work on the aurora. I actually do like the clouds here. I wasn't a fan of them at first, but they've grown on me a lot. Keeping an eye on my histogram for this one. Yes, this is where I get a little carried away. I'm not going to do that later. Let's do these auroras now. I can potentially pull them via a color range, which I'm going to try and do. I'm going to get distracted real quick too. I'm getting a lot of messages about chasing. Oh, it's just a ultimate mothership. Cool. Good for them. All right, let's keep doing this. Probably dip after this shot. Just kind of getting the greens right on this. It ain't perfect, but we're getting there. Just feel like the contrast is a little rough on this one. Colors feel a little bad too. That's actually looks a lot better. Lightroom definitely hugs a warm bias when it comes to auroras, which is fine. Actually, I think warmer auroras looks better than cooler auroras, unless it's winter. That is just so noisy. I really hope this shows up on stream how noisy this actually is. I'm going to darken this just a little bit here, I think. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select an object, and I'm just going to outline this and see if it's smart enough to understand I want just this. I love when Lightroom just works. Oh, beautiful. The issue I have at hand with this is this just looks tremendously, almost like this up here looks fake with this guy. So I want to see how it does with just that. It's actually about what I wanted. I'm just gonna subtract you though and darken you up and reduce some of the orange in there too by just desaturating just a little. All right, that looks good. Let's rock some color grading, my beloved. I'm really keeping an eye on the sky here because the tones up here look, one of the rare times I will say they look perfect. Just coloring my shadows. I like that. I like that a lot. I think if I do an object on these branches, it should detect them. It'll probably pick up their shadows too, which would... Oh, it actually did. Beautiful. We're going to duplicate this mask too. And then I'm going to subtract here. Wait, no. Like that. Darken down there. Sick. Green. FN. Beautiful. I just realized there's no more sunset after 8. Alright, let's see where we're at with this. We came in with this, and we're at that. I actually like this image a lot more than I thought I was going to. So vignetting here, we're going to go along the edge of the building. I'm going to look at the edge here of... right there. Edge of the reflection here. Go along the branches, cut in here because this is where the reflection ends here. Grab a bit more of the little waterfall, grab some of the trees, and then just a gradual slope here. And vignettes. Now that's pretty strong for given that it's already dark, so we'll just do that. And because the style of this, I'm going to add grain. I actually have decided I'm going to do grain on this one rather than sharpening. I think grain is a nice little different approach to a shot like this, and I think that'll just look a little bit more, what's the word for it, in tune with the shot itself. Where I get a little carried away. So that's just a lot of really empty shadows. So I'm just going to do a couple of these, and we're going to intersect that area, darkest point. As you can see on the before, how flat it is there, and that just adds some dimension. That's way too much, but there. Adds some nice glow and dimension. Alright, let's throw some grain in here. And I think we'll call it good on this one then. JKM hazing it. And they think for this, yeah. You can see this is where I get a little carried away with things. Where's my grain? There you are. We'll zoom in, check the grain. So this is without grain, and this is with grain. I'm going to increase both the size and the roughness just a little bit here. The intention of grain is so it hides some of the noise. And because it's overlaid entirely, it looks a little bit more intentional. I think this is a common method that a lot of folks use when they have an image that's very noisy or grainy. I try not to do this, but in this instance, I think it works. Put a little bit of vignette there. Just for kicks, I know I said I wasn't going to work with this red too much because of how minimal it is. But I am just curious. I can almost promise you I'm not keeping this. You just want a little bit of pump to it. Honestly, I like that. It's super subtle. It's very, very subtle. But I like that. I think we're good. I think we're good on this one. $820. I'll do one more. Or at least we'll start with one more. Actually, let's finish the one from May 11th. I'm going to set this one to green. All right. This one. God, May 11th was so epic. 10th and 11th, I should say. Or was it 11th and 12th? I don't know. Oh well. It was May 10th and 11th. Okay, at least for me it was. All right. First things first, check the auto, see what it thinks. Way too warm. This one is a little bit better for color. Problem is though with it is that this is just a little out of focus, but I like the foreground. I think it's really unique and I like these two little trails. So we're gonna work with it. Plus, if I recall, the Aurora actually follows the shape of the Fibonacci. Yeah, it does. Oops, not the wrong one. Oh, for God's sake. I had it there. There we go. That's the one. Your eye follows you down here and it ends you right here at this. So it's kind of like a perfect little leading line into this, which I love. I think that's sweet. All right, let's rock and roll. This one won't take long because we already did the hard part in the last stream of color grading. So let's... Problem is with this is if you notice my stars here, I bumped my tripod for this. So it's not perfect, but I love the exposure way too much to let this one go. So I'm just living with it. I probably won't do much with it. It might just be like a print for my room or something like that. I don't know. But it's a live and learn type thing. This tree looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create like a little vignette way up here. And darken you. The other thing too, in this instance, because I know my stars are blurred here, I'm just gonna go ahead and reduce the clarity and the texture. Kind of just cleans that area up. There have been 2 people sitting in here for a hot minute. If it's the 2 that have been here for a while, I appreciate you guys sticking around. Basically just trying to do just a little bit more color grading in a really, really broad way. Go to 10 there. Perfect. The bits of purple I don't like. So let's do this. Select sky. And I'm going to see if I can intersect this with a color range. Now, because there's so many variants of it that are kind of hiding, I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to make a little box here like this. And that becomes a whole range of color for me. So you can see now, it allows me to become much more exact with this. And I just want to basically tone that down and make it a little bit more blue. So this is without it, and that's with it. It just tones it down a little bit. The other thing too is I like this kind of like aggression that the Northern Lights have in this one. So I'm going to do exactly what I did with this first one, and I'm going to mirror it and do it down here. Just can't have my tree be too bright. We're getting dangerously close to that with it. There we go. Just want a typical rule of thirds here. Let's do, for those who remember the first stream, I did a method where you think of radial gradients as a plate, essentially. So like, imagine this is a plate right here, you're holding up like a steering wheel almost, and you are putting the plate down, right? So I'm putting the plate down here. So I'm gonna put my plate kind of right here in my foreground, and I'm gonna brighten up my exposure a little bit. And it's brightening up that area back there for me. So that's that. This one's coming together actually a lot more than I thought it was going to. I'm really, really pleased with this one. Stars actually look pretty decent down here. I'm coping. Let's see. Let's set my global. And we'll go just cool it off a little bit. Not a ton though. Let's throw in the Photoshop. Almost done with this one actually. There's not a ton I want to do with it. It's a lot of overheads that I can work with. One that that I have to adjust down the road. I don't have the capacity into it for tonight. There's so much color grading that this one needs. But it was one of the coolest overheads that I've ever experienced. just wicked cool. But what I need to do is basically all up in here in these little areas I need to darken, similar to how I did it with this one. That one's going to be a bear. That one's going to take a hot minute to do, so I'm not going to focus on that one. Let that load up real quick. There. Check what my CPU load is, because this thing is slowing down. Yeah, stream is. I have 3 Photoshop tabs open, so that should let up on me a little bit, I think. If not, we'll call it here, because this is try and free up some memory real quick. Let me also do this. I hope it's not too loud, but we are going to try it. Where are you? I downloaded this program like yesterday with the hopes of turning my MacBook fans on to cool them down, because yeah, it is going real slow right now. But I can go to, it's just cool because I can check everything to make sure we're all good. I just know that my CPU is running pretty hot right now. Let that run for a minute. Sorry if it's loud. Just trying to get this to cool off a little bit here. Anyway, back to this while that runs for a minute. I have this farmhouse way down here. Missed focus on, which sucks. We're gonna get really shifty with our vignettes here on this one. So we are going to make multiple vignettes. So if I did this right, everything in the other areas should be darkened down. Whoops. We'll see. That's a yes. Perfect. Check my CPU real quick. Yeah, we brought it down a bunch. Let's kill it. Perfect. Lovely. Mission solved for that. All right. It's looking pretty good. Histogram looks baller for this one right now. Perfect slope. I love that. We're pretty close to being done. This is one where I mentally think more needs to be done with it, but in reality, I like how it looks. It's nice and focused up here, but then as you go back, you lose it basically instantly. It's just the way she goes. It's the way she goes. Gonna do one broad vignette up here. I might look back in this and be like, I just did nothing but vignettes for the last 10 minutes of this. That's fine. I'm getting ideas. before and after. Yeah, looks good. We're going to be wrapping up here in just a minute. I'm going to get all these exported, and we're going to put them onto one square frame. See how 4x5 looks with this. Nah. Perfect. Okay. Save view, get some exports done, throw it onto one collage, and that should do it. Let's do this though. Doesn't matter the background color. What am I doing? That was exactly what I wanted. Okay. I need you to be exported for web. And I need these two to be exported for web. Just resizing them out, seeing if we can fit them onto one grid. Probably doing this really stupidly, but whatever. And then we flip the canvas, pull you, remove my crop, go there and there, and image rotate counterclockwise. Oh, that's gonna bother me. They're not centered. God, I wonder. Just for the sake of it. Much better. Cool. Okay, is it this one? That is the one. Cool. I'm gonna end it there. We've been at it for how long? About an hour and a half, which is really good actually. 3 was about the hope for images that I wanted to tackle, so I'm pretty stoked about those. I'll be tweeting it and throwing it up on Instagram stories here in a little bit, but otherwise, for those who tuned in, thank you. I hope you guys learned something. I'm excited to stream again. Looks like there might be a chance for these auroras again this weekend. We had an X1 this middle of the night last night, but it was apparently it was a really slow mover. I haven't looked into it, so I haven't heard hype, so that's not a good sign. But regardless, gonna end the stream here. Hope you guys all learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed hanging out. Excited to do this again soon. And until then, I will catch you guys later.